Those are live visuals from Abuja where voters came out in their numbers and they were being checked at one of the polling units. They were being checked, security checks first of all, and then they were checking the list to cross-check, their data, their information, if it matches with what they have on the ground. But we have joining us now Funmi Komolafe, a journalist and columnist. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure.
Let me begin with you, Funmi. You have been monitoring the process thus far. What are your observations with regards to the process, the turnout of voters, and the security, everything in the whole?
Well, I have also cast my vote.
Right.
So what I've observed is that there seems to be an adequate number of INEC officials. Yeah, in some booths, you have only 2, and that slows down the process.
The process, yeah.
Now, one person does the accreditation. She looks at the list of INEC, making sure that your card matches what is on the list, and then you go to the next person that uses the beavers. Where I cast my vote, the beavers worked perfectly. There was no issue. The only delay was that the same person that gave the ballot papers, he had to sign it. He gave it to us. It was the same person that used the beavers machine. I mean, this appeared to concentrated in one person. Okay? That slowed down the process a bit, but it went on smoothly. Another observation that if I had to compare with 4 years ago, is that this time around, the ballot papers weren't as long as it was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, it was so long, almost longer than a full tape rule. But now, it's a bit concise, and you can easily identify the party you want to vote for.
Yeah, just 18 parties this time.
Yeah, 18 parties this time. And I also noticed that the House of Rep candidate, the House of Rep ballot box is the shortest, the one for that candidate, followed by the Senate, and then the presidential is the longest of the 3. But it makes it easier for voters to locate your party, identify your party, and then thumbprint, and then you just go away smoothly. Everything has been going on fine. Again, I also observed that there's a shortage of security personnel. What am I saying? Yes, 4 years ago, nearly all the booths around here had at least a policeman or 2. But this time around, you have one policeman at the beginning of the road, and he's to man both booths on that street. But that street has always been a peaceful area. Nobody goes there. In fact, it has no record of violence. Right. So everything is going on well. But let's put it on record that there's a shortage of security personnel. And you want to ask...
INEC said they deployed over 400,000.
So where are they? How many booths? Because you have to match with the number of booths. Now, when they were trying to tell us or when we were being told that the nation is prepared for this, or INEC and other security agents are prepared for it, we saw policemen, we saw soldiers, even road safety. All of them came out. Civil defense. All of them came out to say they will be a part of this. But it's only the police that I have seen. I didn't see others. Even though there are people who raise issues that we don't have to militarize the process by bringing out soldiers. I didn't see any. But maybe in some areas. So, and I made contact with some areas in Mushin, very peaceful too, no violence. They also said, well, a few policemen around. Another observation, party agents, and maybe this is where we are talking about the structure. In most booths here, Oshofe, Mushin, and 1 or 2 areas that I had called, every booth had, I hope we're allowed to mention names of parties.
No, not at all.
Okay, 2 parties. Only 2 parties. Yet you have 18, contesting. You find only 2.
It's understandable.
But that's their own.
It's really understandable because parties are struggling now to even mobilize
Because of the
agents.
cash crunch again.
Yeah.
So some of them are looking for volunteers because they can't find the money to pay them. So it's volunteers that they are looking for now. And that's even talking about the richest parties. The two dominant parties have got the cash to spend. It's assumed that they've got the cash to spend, but they can't pay agents. Unlike previous elections, because the money is not there. So now they are just looking for people who volunteer, party members who volunteer
As party
to
agents.
do it. Yes.
Yeah,
to do-
even for the
to
two
do
parties.
the job, to do the job for free, because they've not got money to pay them. Someone called me from Kontagora in Niger State to say, see, people are hungry because the electoral season is like boom time for some of these our people. And then Emefiele has created this problem that ensures that boom time is not like the experience in previous years. This is legitimate. Yes, it's not, no one is saying, oh no, we are not talking about vote buying. Parties need money for logistics and to pay their agents. They don't want their agents to compromise, work for the enemy, but they need to pay them a minimum amount of money that will ensure that they can stay for the rest, throughout the election period. We are seeing elections being delayed now. Someone called, sent me a message that in Lugbe, penthouse estates in Lugbe, along the airport road in Abuja, that ballot materials came in around 11:43. And that's in the federal capital. We are not talking about distant communities.
Yes.
So in that situation, the agent gets to work far longer hours. And if we can't pay them for all of that hard work, then it is bad. This is the situation that this policy has created. It's not about, everything is not about vote buying. Well, you need to pay these people. They move from one point to another. You need to give them money that will ensure that they're able to even transport themselves to polling centers. But
Absolutely.
it's been difficult. It's been really difficult.
Even to buy water.
Yes.
Because they're going to be seated there for hours.
Yes.
Sometimes they need water.
Water, maybe
They have to buy.
a loaf of bread.
Exactly.
And then a bottle of
soft
Pepsi
drink.
or something, so that at least just to hold their belly together. It's tough.
Unfortunately. But then again, when you look at the turnout, the number of women participation in this election, what are your observations?
Well,
Not as candidates,
yeah, I know.
but turning out
As voters.
to vote, yes.
Yeah, I saw quite a sizable number of women, even the very aged. They came. Young women, middle-aged women, they came. And the men were also there. Youths were there. It's a good turnout. A good mix of all the classes, if you say.
Now, like I asked my guests earlier, would you say that INEC has been able to consolidate on the improvements made by the Electoral Act?
Well, I think I would say so, because the beavers, where I cast my vote, worked well and fine. But that will not be the situation all over. But it makes sure that, like somebody raised an issue that, oh, my name appears on the INEC list 2 times. And somebody jokingly said, oh, that means you can vote 2 times. It's not possible, because the beavers will reject you. It's only once that you can vote. So people came out to, I think they have. The problem that I see is this shortage of personnel. And I don't know how that should be, because in previous elections that I have cast my vote, I'm not even talking of 2019, the ones even ahead of 2019, before 2019, it was an opportunity for INEC to engage even not just graduates, but people who had maybe completed awaiting university admission. you know, it created jobs for them, and they were paid, and they participated in the exercise. But this time around, I don't know why INEC seemed to be short of personnel. I don't know why.
Perhaps it goes back to the matter of cash crunch. How do they
But
pay
INEC
them?
has boasted that it has enough money. INEC is the parties that are grumbling.
Then you also recall that some youth corps members actually said that they were not going to participate, about 100,000 of them, talking about security matters as well. So that's a huge number that we are also not having, but working for the INEC in this process.
Yeah, but the number of coppers that opted out, if you check, is for a certain area.
Yes.
Not in Lagos.
Perhaps they might have, you know, in trying to spread the number across the country.
Yeah, but it's not only coppers that INEC can use. INEC, there are so many people available that INEC can use. What about LG workers? You have them all over the country. A lot of people. The human resources there. I hope that INEC is not trying to conserve funds. Or maybe...
For what and for who?
I wouldn't know. Maybe they had boasted that they have enough money to pay. Maybe they have found out that what they have may not be enough to pay the personnel. And maybe that's why they reduced it. I wouldn't know. Only INEC will be in a position to explain why. But it's obvious that there's a shortage of personnel from INEC.
Right. What are your concerns with regards to, we have witnessed delays in materials getting to some of the polling units across some states in the country. We've seen in Bauchi where our correspondent told us that they were just getting some of the materials to some polling units at almost 12 o'clock. And we know that accreditation closes at 2 p.m. I wonder what your concerns are with regards to that, because we've witnessed a number of delay in the movement of materials.
Yeah, I think generally, this time around, INEC appeared ill-prepared, or they didn't use the right method for distribution. For instance, a bus that was meant to convey materials to Lagos crashed in Abuja. Now, why would you convey voting materials from Abuja to Lagos or to some of these areas that you mentioned by road? Why? There are cargo planes. This thing could have been conveyed with cargo planes, and they would have landed at least 24 hours to the time. So I think INEC, the logistics, that department of INEC didn't do his work well. And maybe there will be an overhaul, I don't know. But where they are bringing materials late, they should know that they cannot deprive people of the right to vote. They will have no option but to extend the time of voting. I do hope that the materials eventually arrive the destination. Because the one coming from Abuja that the car crashed in coming to Lagos that the car crashed in Abuja. See how long it's going to take by road to get another one. And it means that that area in Lagos now is going to receive materials late or not receive at all. Whereas this thing could have been done by air cargo plane. The Nigerian Air Force still has planes. They can convey it.
Yes.
So I think INEC didn't handle its logistics well, the distribution of materials. I hope it's not internal sabotage.
It's possible that the late release of money to them played a part in all of this, because normally money should have been made available to them earlier than CBN did. So I want to believe that this is part of...
I want to take you up on the matter of internal sabotage. How do you mean?
Well, I hope, when I say I hope it's not internal sabotage, I hope it's not deliberate.
To what end?
Well, whoever is doing it knows to what end, okay? Because there may be a plan to deprive some people of their voting rights.
Why?
Well, I wouldn't know, but whoever
politicians,
is responsible for it, do it. It's possible.
Do it. Politicians do it. Politicians also have agents in INEC.
Exactly.
And sometimes they try to compromise INEC staff to... some INEC staff have been put on trial now.
Absolutely.
For compromising the process. Look at the prof. that helped the political party to rigged for a political party in Akwa Ibom and had to be put on trial. So we can't totally rule out some of these things. We've seen people even in the IT unit of INEC sabotaging the rights of Nigerians to vote by ensuring that where some politicians, where some particular party is very strong, they make it impossible for a good number of people originally registered to vote at that polling unit to find their names on the ballot, on the register. So these things happen, and one should not totally dismiss it. The people, look at the lawmaker who was arrested yesterday.
Yes.
With the list of people to pay the money to. Of course, INEC was listed among the beneficiaries. So it means that there is a history of taking money to people in INEC to do their bidding. They can't just set aside money for INEC. They set aside money for INEC to achieve an aim. So maybe when the guy is properly grilled, we will then see the full ramifications of the goal of the people who sent him on that mission. But this is Nigeria. We can't dismiss these things as things that can happen. But they certainly have happened before, and we have to be vigilant as a people to ensure that the election is not sabotaged. When you hear the governor, when ballot materials are not delivered on time to polling centers, the politicians begins to think that they don't want him to win.
Right.
Look, despite the fact that the vice presidential candidate chose his words,
Yes.
you can see that he was worried. Because if voting begins in good time, chances are that the votes that will come from that place will be high. Because it means that many people won't go back home in anger and not come back.
True.
If you keep people on the queue for 4 hours, their patience will snap. And once their patience snaps, they go home, many of them will not come back. So the politician was already getting worried that this could have an impact on the outcome. You know, if you are thinking of tremendous votes from a particular location and ballot materials don't get there on time, there is no way you will be able to achieve your aim, because it will cause some of the potential voters to live in anger, and you will lose votes as a result. So he was already worried. I said, let's give INEC the benefit of the doubt, but I'm not happy. This exercise should have begun much earlier. There are many ways to skin a cat. There are many ways to rig an election in our country. And you and I know that INEC officials had been arrested in the past, even with ballot materials.
True.
INEC officials had been arrested in the past for colluding with politicians, even delivering critical voting materials to some politicians. Look at the form EC8A, for example, on which results of election are written. INEC officials will sometimes connive with politicians and deliver that form to them so that the politician can then fill fake results on them, which they can tender in court. Once it is the original, then you begin to argue. And if the guy is not taken, the court may admit it as evidence. And that's the end. So we just have to be vigilant if we want to continue to see improvement in the electoral process. And there were so many stakeholders who contributed to drafting the Electoral Act. They had seen some of the failings in the system, and they made their contributions through that, through not just stakeholder engagement, but through
Town halls.
town hall kind of engagement with the Senate, during which suggestions were made. And so what we needed to do to make our elections better, and some of the things that compromised our elections in the past, we have successfully come up with antidotes to them in this
Electoral
Act. Let us see whether in the final analysis we'll be saying, yes, Electoral Act 2022 helped us to achieve electoral integrity, because that is the goal. If people cannot freely choose their leaders, then what is the essence of an election? Our leaders will begin to truly work for the people when they realize that they can no longer compromise our elections. When they discover that our elections can no longer be rigged in the way they used to rig them in the past, they will know that to keep their places, they must truly work for the people. Because if they don't work for the people during elections, they can easily be chased away. You know? So that will push the leaders to change their ways and begin to focus on working for the Nigerian people. It's happened in countries like Botswana, for example. They've had a succession of good leaders. It begins with credible elections.
Sure.
It puts power in the hands of the voter. The voter can chase away leaders that refuse to work for the people. That way, the mindset of the politician begins to change. The politician knows that, look, what is waiting for him at the end of 4 years is disgrace if he does not work for the people. So you now see that, look, it's taken for granted that whoever wins an election in Botswana will work for the people, because they know the election, you can't rig the elections. As big as India is, the world's biggest democracy, you can't rig an election. It's a combination of electronic and manual voting that they do, but you can't rig. And by the next day, they know the winner. Not like we'll be waiting for 48 hours, no. So we must continue to improve our electoral process, because that is the first step to achieving real growth and development in our country. In my view, that is, we do not have a choice. We must clean up the electoral process. Once we've cleaned it up sufficiently, honestly, we can only have good leaders as a result.
Is this a matter of law or morality? Because he has said improving on our laws, but at the end of the day, you still find that humans still have a major role to play at ensuring that those laws are improved upon, and then that they actually, bring to bear what they were made for. But when you look at the fact that humans still play a major role in the matters of corruption and sabotage, is it really a matter of law or morality?
A combination of both. A combination of both. The law will play its part, but human beings also have their own duties, right? The law will not cast a vote. It is human beings that will vote. And by the time the process gives confidence to the voter, you're going to almost eliminate voter apathy. Because if you are sure that your vote will count, and you then begin to hold accountable the people that you have cast your vote for, I think that's another area that we need to
accountability.
develop. Accountability. Right. How do we hold those who have elected accountable? I imagine that what the Electoral Act expected, or what is expected of politicians, and that's why they have vote for constituency projects, constituency offices. But how many people have access to such places and will go there after the election? True. So the voter also there should be a platform wherein the voter can have, can be able to ask questions or have access to the elected rep. What you find is that when they get elected, especially those at the federal level, and that's why you find that this time around, not many of them are returning to the House of Rep and the Senate, because essentially they disconnect with the people. And once you disconnect with the people, of course the people also are waiting. You will come back in 4 years. Those who did not disconnect with the people, those who made sure that they were accountable to the people and the people had access to them and they could ask and answer questions, many of those got the ticket back to the respective legislative houses. But those that disconnected, a lot of them lost at the primaries. That's internal party primaries. I'm not even talking of general voters, the general voters now. But even at the level of primary party primaries. So it helps to close a disconnect. There has to be a system that will close the gap between the electorate and the elected reps, okay? So that there could be a meeting point where people can ask questions. And that's the idea of the whole thing about constituency offices. So people should also realize that it's not enough to cast your vote and your candidate has won and you go to sleep. Have you ever visited the constituency office? Do you have an issue to raise? Did you go there? Those are the things. These are the way we are going to have our democracy develop. Everybody has a duty. Everybody has some kind of responsibility. It doesn't begin and end with casting your vote and then going to sleep. But then the elected person should also organize it in such a way that there's no disconnect between him and the voters. That way, we are deepening our democracy, and then it will come to stay.
What would it take to have a system that holds its leaders to account, GD?
Yes, I think that we have to take these things one step at a time.
At a time.
Somebody asked me, how can we have a succession of good leaders? You know, I think it was on your view about 3 years ago or so. And I said, look, we must first ensure that our elections are credible. In many instances, you find the politician treating the voter with levity because he thinks that he can spend his money to power. He thinks that it's not accountable to the people. And once the politician is not accountable to the people, you can't expect him to deliver.
Right.
All he can do is deliver even greater pain to our people. But when you have elections that by their fidelity, the politician can see that he does not have a choice. He has to first work hard to get the people behind him before he can win an election. Then, when he wins, he knows that if he does not work for the people, he will be shown the door. Honestly, you start seeing the attitude of the politician changing to people who they will start behaving like people who are truly committed to progress. A lot of them do not give a hoot. For now, they don't give a hoot. Once we sort the electoral process, once we get it right, other things will fall in place. Even even elected positions will be much more competitive. There are people who do not want to get involved because they think they will outrig us. They will, you get the point that I'm making.
Yes.
We need more brilliant people in government.
Right.
They will come in when they have greater faith in the process that brings up our leaders.